just want to really thank you guys. There's so many classes you could be in right now, but the fact that you've decided to show up here just tells me what a big heart you guys have for those kids in your ministry that just don't always seem to fit in. You know, I think what they shared this morning in the Faith Withstands, that could have been any one of our kids. Absolutely. You know, it's like as he's talking, I realized it was probably a teen that comes from a challenging background, but it could have been any neurodiverse child, because very often their disability, and they don't even refer to it as a disability, but it is invisible. And the only way you see it is often when you have those behaviors. They're the cue in. The behaviors are the symptom of something else. So thank you so much. We are happy to answer as many questions as we can at the end. We will put our phone numbers up. If you have more questions and we haven't answered them, please feel free to text us. We've been talking and collaborating, and we're just going to do some Zooms after this. We're going to reteach this on Zoom because there was a lot of people that couldn't come and couldn't be here. And then we're going to record it and we'll share that. But I think there's so many other things. Putting this class together, it was actually really hard to decide what to share because there's so many things we could have shared. And we came in a day early to finish this presentation. And we literally sat in the hotel all day. We didn't go anywhere until we're like, we probably should get some food. Because there was just ideas just kept popping in, and we're like, well, we should make another slide, and we should add this and add this, and we're like, we had to top it. So hopefully we put enough material in that it's just 45 minutes or 40 minutes, 35 minutes, but we'll see. You'll probably hear my accent come out as I start talking. I grew up in the UK. I moved to New York when I was 19 years old, and that's where I became a disciple, out in the Westchester ministry. And I went back to London, experienced the ministry there for about 9 months. Went back to New York, really focused in on children's ministry. Worked a lot with some of the people in New Jersey, but I was still in New York. And then I moved out to San Diego in about 2002. I became a disciple as a single when I was 23 years old in 1994. I was met by one of my neighbors who I thought was creepy, but he kept coming out every time I walked the dog, and he invited me to meet his girlfriend, and she studied the Bible with me, and she's still one of my best friends to this day. When God moves, he moves. I had my own history, my own past. I didn't want to get married, wanted kids, but didn't want to get married. And when I moved to San Diego, within 18 months I was married. Met my husband, who was leading the Bible talk. Within a month I was leading with him. And a year later, we were married. And so when God puts something on your heart, it can move quickly. And I think it's the same in this ministry. You know, sometimes there are obstacles and hurdles that we have to hit, but God moves. My training is in early childhood. I'm a life coach, a parent educator, and my specialty is ADHD. I work with families internationally, helping the kids, helping the parents. My husband Steve and I founded the Children's Ministry Conference. I said it was 2015, it was 2014. The first Exceptional Families Conference, which was catering and supporting the families with disabilities, was in 2015. So a year later, we added in additional conferences. We currently oversee a very, very small children's ministry. So if you have a small ministry for your people, we have like 5 kids, maybe, in our children's ministry. I've overseen kids ministries with 200, 150. We've been all over the place. I've been doing children's ministry for probably about 26 years. It's just my passion. I love kids. I did not have anyone to teach me about God when I was little. As a teenager, and usually I have this Bible, and I didn't bring it today, I begged for a Bible. And my grandmother bought me for Christmas a children's picture Bible. It wasn't what I wanted, but it's what I got. And I read that thing, and I still have it. I still have it in my room. It just meant that much. So for me, ministering to children, and it is ministering, it's not babysitting, it is my ministry. And it is my heart to pass on God's love to them wherever they are.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I grew up in Lake Tahoe, California, and met my husband when we were 10. So in 1997 we were married, and we you moved it. Sorry. And we moved to San Diego just long enough for me to get baptized and move to the East Coast. And we now live in Virginia Beach. We've lived there most of 26 years. And, I don't know that we probably stay on the East Coast. Although I miss the beauty of California, I'm not sure I would go back to the West Coast. I was a stay-at-home mom and Navy wife for many years. And during that time, God kind of made it clear that children were my passion, but even more so, special needs or anyone who doesn't fit the mold, is, as he said, the box is kind of my passion, because all of my kids fall there. I have a master's degree in special education because I started researching. I didn't know what was wrong with my son, and I wanted to know. And so I just started digging, and I started searching, and I was like, this is what it is for me. I taught in the school systems for 10 years. I homeschooled 2 of my neurodivergent children who are both on the autism spectrum for a few years. I provide respite care for individuals with exceptional needs. One of my clients is in her 20s. And I provide occasional childcare for large families. And I tutor both neurotypical and neurodivergent people, even adults. I was a children's ministry lead coordinator for over 10 years, and last year I became the children's ministry director for the Hampton Roads Church. Vicky and I met in 2015 at Camp Hope for Kids. She came to check out our special week of camp, and our friendship has just continued to grow and just foster over the years. We both obviously are passionate about this topic specifically. So
yeah, that's amazing. If you haven't gone to camp, I highly suggest you do. It is absolutely incredible. So this is my family. When I saw the chair, I'm like, oh wow, timing on that. But my daughter's 18 in a month, less than a month, like 26 days. So she's a senior getting ready for college. She got baptized about 2.5 years ago. She is neurodiverse. She has ADHD. It impacts her socially as much as anything. She's a fast talker, fast test taker, and haven't quite learned how to slow her down yet. My son is really the one that brought me into this world, big time. When we started the Exceptional Families Ministry, we just led to give. We didn't know we would become a part of that ministry. And God set us up. I mean, he gave us the contacts and resources and everyone we needed to be where we are today. He has ADHD, and it was really prevalent back then. He was really struggling. He has autism, dysgraphia, and a whole zone of other things, anxiety and a whole lot of stuff. So he actually led both out of the box. She fits in better. She works really hard to fit in the box. Most people wouldn't know. And in fact, most people wouldn't know him when they met him. But if you spend enough time around them, you'll see little quirky things that you'll be like, what's going on? He has grown so much in the last year thanks to camp and that church that has just wrapped their arms around him. And he is amazing. He's going to do amazing things for God. He's had a heart for God since he was little, writing lyrics and pouring his heart out. It's just incredible. So I'm really excited to see him come back as part of his journey. Okay.
This is my family. I'm a mom of 4 adults. My children range in age from 28 to 21. Well, he'll be 21 in December. The Marine there. He's a new Marine. My oldest son, Jacob, was diagnosed on the spectrum when he was 10. It took a lot to really figure out what was going on, and even to get a diagnosis. He was always out of the box, but honestly, as I became a Christian at 21, he was 2, and I worked really hard to fit my kids into a box. I just thought that's what we had to do. We had to fit our kids into a box. And so I know that did a lot of damage. And, it's really painful to think about often, but we have great relationships with our children now and open conversations. And I worked really hard to teach them about God and doing what was right, but what I thought was right was really not what was right. And my daughter Julianne has my granddaughter. My granddaughter Adeline is a little over 1. She came to camp with us this year, and what a blessing to share. I just am super grateful. She actually, I think, may have some delays, but I tend to overestimate things, so it's hard to know. But I do watch her one day a week. But we deal with mental health with the family, mental health challenges. There's lots of different things: ADHD, the autism spectrum, anxiety, and so there was a lot of things going on in our home that I really had to learn about and grow in as a parent and as a person. Yeah. So, what is neurodiversity? Is this term new to you? Every ministry in our church is neurodiverse. Each one of us processes and engages with information in a slightly different way, or a vastly different way. We all contribute to our church community of differences because we all are wonderfully made. Oh yeah, I forgot. I love this scripture because it describes what the body of Christ looks like, and every part is included, just like every person should be included in our ministries. 1 Corinthians 12:17-20, if the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body.
It's pretty incredible. I think the realism is we need neurodiversity in our ministry. They're the ones that expand us and stretch us and help us be more like Christ in so many different ways. So neurotypical, it's described as somebody who thinks and processes information in a way that is typical, right? Kind of what you would expect, right? They meet your expectations, but within their culture and setting. So even that is going to define slightly differently depending on where they live and how they've grown up, who they're around. Neurodivergent describes an individual who processes information and may behave in a way that is different from the actual or perceived. And I think that's something to really process, what we perceive as a norm of a particular culture. There are things that your kids can do in India that they can't do in San Diego or California or US. There are things kids can do in the UK that they can't do in France, right? So it really all depends on where you are and what you're located and what your perceived expectation is. So I think, this whole weekend has been a lot more than I realized about really reimagining our ministries, right? I think we've really been challenged this weekend to think about how we can reimagine our ministries to ensure that everyone, whether it's the kid coming from the challenging background or neighborhood to the kid in the wheelchair, which we're not really talking about those kinds of special needs today, but they're included, or if they're neurodiverse, right? If they're just looking and thinking a little bit differently. So I think for us, and even as a mom, and not even as a ministry person, I had to identify my preconceived ideas first. It actually changed my parenting. How I parented hugely shifted because of my child. He made me rethink everything I had learned in school, everything I had taught for years, because it didn't meet his needs. It made everything worse, right? I had to change first. And that doesn't mean we go around blaming the parents, right? Because of how their kids are. Right. They don't know what they don't know. Just like the people who were guiding and advising me as disciples and mentors didn't know what they didn't know. It wasn't until I got into the right situation, the right mentoring relationship, I found a coach who specialized in this area, that I learned how to connect properly and meet the needs of my kids. And I think that's something we probably all need to do because we're accustomed to doing it a certain way. But that way doesn't work for everybody. So it's not up to us to pass judgment. It doesn't matter what our opinion is. It doesn't matter what you're thinking. It matters how you love and connect. And I think we heard that really clearly on stage this morning. You know, God has gifted every one of us here this weekend and not here. There's a lot of people not here that wanted to come with unique qualities, right? But God has gifted each of these kids with unique qualities too. And if we are that right soil, if we can figure it out and draw it out of them, we're going to make a huge difference in their lives. So the questions we can ask ourselves are, how can we embrace who they are as individuals? Who they are, not who we are, who they are, with kindness and gentleness, like Jesus. How can we help them find joy in learning about God in a way that it allows God to transform them? It's not about behavior modification, right? It's allowing them to feel so loved by God that it elicits a response in them. We don't control that. But very often we don't give these kids the chance to experience that because they are the kids that don't fit in at camp. They are the kids that might not show up at ministry. They are the kids that might be, rolling around on the floor even. Some of the most highly intelligent kids I've worked with have been the most challenging to help the parents see that there's more going on. Because they're so smart. But socially, they can't connect.
I have a story about
Socially, they're overwhelmed, right? They don't know how to show up. They haven't learned. It's not known. And the bottom line is, honestly, we need to do this for everybody in our ministry. It doesn't matter whether they're neurodiverse, in a wheelchair, whether they have a breathing apparatus, or whether they are the typical kid and the football star or the cheerleader. We can approach everybody, every kid, every 3-year-old, every infant, every 7-year-old in our ministry this way. So this is a big thing. We're sharing some things and we're touching on some key points that we've seen make a huge difference in our ministries. And this is one of them. Who here has a friend at church? Who here has gone to our church and not ever had a friend? Yeah.
Some, yeah.
That makes it hard to relate to some of these kids. They come in and they don't know who their friend is. Now you would think they would think everybody's their friend, but they don't. They don't know who likes them. They can't read the room. And if all they're getting is negative feedback, get up off the floor, sit on the chair, behave, listen, stop fidgeting. Are they my friend? Do I want to be around them? Probably not, right? You have parents in your ministries bribing, dragging the kids out of bed, pulling them away from their screens, kicking them out the door to get them to your ministry. I've done it. I promise you. And I led children's ministry, and I'm taught middle school, and I'm leading teens with the teen leaders. We're shepherding now, right? But I've been there. I've done that. I called my friends, can you bring your son to my ministry tonight? Because then my son will come. Because I'm going to tell him, your son's there and he needs to go be a friend to him. And they grew up together. It got him there. But they're the extremes that we sometimes as parents have to go to. So when that kid shows up late, you don't know what happened behind those scenes to get that kid through that door to just show up in your ministry, right? And that goes from a 2-year-old. My 2-year-old son would scream as soon as we pulled up at church, "Don't take me, don't put me in there." Children's ministry leader, right? All the way to the 2-year-old class. Well, it was the infants class back then. He was just old enough to have language. He hadn't moved up to 2s. What do you do? Here. I trusted those people in there. I knew them. I loved them. The minute I left out, he's good. I can't hear him, right? But that didn't just happen at 2. That kept happening all the way through. Why? I didn't know back then he had autism. I didn't know he had sensory issues. There was so much I didn't know about him that now I can look back and red flag all these things. Almost every Sunday, whether it was a local church service or a congregational, my son got dressed at church. Why? Because it was easier. It was easier. To get him up and get him dressed was a pure nightmare back then, right? It was just easier for us to do it that way until he was too old. And then the challenges started to hit. So kids need friends. We have to foster those relationships, but we can't force those relationships. And there's a huge difference. Like with the little boy he'd grown up with that he was willing to go to church with, that was fostered, right? From infancy, literally. I took care of both of them in my home from being babies. But when we had a child move into our ministry 1.5, 2 years ago, I tried to foster again, helping my son, hey, look, he's new, he doesn't know anyone, let's have him over. And I probably did it a little too much because he asked me, why are you forcing me to be friends with this kid? And they're both neurodiverse. I pretty much can identify that, right? But he felt forced. I had to step back. I'm like, okay. I wanted to be defensive. No, I'm not. But I'm like, okay, look at it from your lens, look at it from your perspective. You're not ready yet, you know? I step back. They're best friends now. They're really good friends now, right? Sometimes our kids need to do it on their terms. And if you have a neurodiverse kid with ADHD, telling them what to do, she's experienced it, is the last thing you want to do. It often elicits an automatic, not doing that. Why? Because they haven't had time to process what they want to do and where they're at. I got so many no's when my son was probably about 7. It caused a lot of problems for us on a lot of different levels. But my husband and I picked up really fast that his no wasn't really a no. It was I need to think about what you're asking me so I can actually go do it. And when we didn't attack him with behavior modification, and I'm the mom, you need to do what I say, or, you know, whatever, stop disrespecting us and all of that stuff. And we stepped back, and both of us, we stand like this, just like watching each other and to see what he would do. He did exactly what we asked. But if we attacked him, it didn't happen. Everything blew up. Disharmony, right? And that can happen with our kids in the ministry. And they show us throughout their behavior of not showing up what's really going on.
And, you know, that kind of brings up the topic of we need to create opportunities, but not force. And in preparing for this lesson, I talked to my children and I asked them for permission. Well, first I asked them for input on what they thought I should share. So 3 of my children, my 3 oldest, were baptized, and they all have decided to walk away from the fellowship right now. And so I really wanted their input because I know a lot of it was created in different situations when they were teens, when they were in children's ministry, you know, different things that happened along their path. And I love watching the journey they're on, and I do think it's a journey, and it's a beautiful journey, but it's important to identify why things happened and to help them through it. But in order to do that, really looking at how are we working in our ministries now. So I wanted to share something my son shared. He said, my biggest insecurity was who of the people that did talk to me genuinely wanted to, and who were just doing as they were asked to by their parents or by the leaders. The expectations were hard on me. The wants and expectations of people in my life wanting me to fit a mold as a disciple made me constantly question if I was just going to be a disappointment. So many people tried to fix me, and all I ever seemed to like myself was broken and not worth their time. I felt like when I genuinely tried, I was told I wasn't trying. So, friendships are valuable. And as a mom, I was that person. Like, I worked with my friends who had children the same age to foster those friendships, to ask them to have their children call my son and engage and build friendships. And some of that was good. There are relationships he still has that they're close. They talk every day. They grow. But then there are those others where he's had people say, I really didn't want to spend time with you. My mom made me do it. And because of that, it's damaged some of it, his self-confidence, his self-worth, a lot of things that, I really see I needed to work on back then that I didn't. And so, thinking through opportunities in the ministry, providing those opportunities, but not forcing the opportunities. And then, so she was talking about a child rolling on the floor. When my youngest son was in the teen ministry, they had teen talks. And he would go to this Bible talk for teens, and he was left out. He felt left out. And he would come home and he'd share, some of the things that happened. But I got a call one night, and they said he couldn't come anymore because he was rolling on the floor, meowing like a cat. This is my 15-year-old. So the first question I asked was, what was happening prior to this? Was he engaged? What was going on? Because behavior indicates something. Right. And he was, the only responses he would get would be negative responses. So if you're going to get attention, let's seek the negative attention. And that's really what was happening. I really didn't want him to go back. But I wanted to also fight for him. It was this battle of fighting for what is right, but also not wanting him to have to continue to go through it. And I was mortified as a parent. You think, am I doing everything I need to do? So one of the things I appreciate, not long after that, we had a change in our teen ministry. And we had a different couple come in and lead our region of teens. And the teen leader who took over with my son engaged him. He started building a friendship. It wasn't about, behaviors. It was about, let's just go, let's walk together and do things together. One of the things he did was, there were many of the guys were disciples. My son was not a disciple yet. And so he spent time with him, and he had D groups with the other guys. So that way, he had so many people. There was not time to get one-on-one with everyone, but he spent the time with the kids who were not yet disciples. And then worked with the others to work together. I think that really fostered a friendship, fostered a relationship, and showed that you're important whether you're baptized or not. I know that was something that I think, looking back, all of my kids were kind of left out in different areas of the teen ministry or children's ministry, and it was because they were different. Or they weren't spiritual enough, or whatever it was. And if that's all we're looking for in a ministry, we're going to miss all of those kids and all the beauty of those kids who are out of the box.
Yeah. Those kids are really the ones that are going to teach and train us on how to be with another kid that might be coming later, honestly. The bottom line is, you are going to make mistakes. You just are.
We all do.
We all do. As educators, as parents, we do things and they're like, oh, that probably wasn't the best way to handle that situation. But kids are forgiving. Teens are forgiving. If you go back and you're humble and you repair with them and you acknowledge how you messed up, that's probably even more powerful because it allows them to mess up. It allows them to realize their mistakes, and it teaches compassion. You know, the other kids in your ministries, whether it's children's ministry or youth and family or middle school, whatever it is, and the adults, they're watching. You know, they might not be, you know, with spyglasses watching you, but they see how we interact with other people. And kids, middle schoolers, teens, follow suit. If we're not doing our part to pull everybody in, the other kids won't.
Yeah.
Yep.
They won't. They'll leave that kid off to the side. It takes a really special child to step out of the norm, out of the box, to go reach out to the child that's on the side. I've seen it happen. It happens, but it's rare. Okay? And that is something I've taught my kids. You know, I think that was one of the things that impressed me about one of the girls in our teen ministry. And when I got to write a recommendation letter for her college, I noted that. Because no matter who came through the doors in our teen ministry, she was the first one to go over and greet them and welcome them and show them love and kindness. It stood out. And what was amazing was she was the newest kid in the block. She had just arrived in our ministry. Okay? But she was the one. Even whether the kids had been coming all their life, for 6 months, a year, whether they were baptized or not, mattered not. She was the one that went out and pulled everybody in. She worked the room. She talked to everybody. And she taught the other kids how to do that. We didn't have to say anything. We imitated her. We got called even higher to stop what we were doing and make sure we greeted everybody coming in, right? It's the rare child. But the kids subconsciously pick up on everything we do, and they imitate it. Kids don't do what we say. They do what we do. Okay.
The fruits of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Working with exceptional families gives us a lot of opportunities to embrace these fruits of the Spirit. I mean, really working with anyone, honestly, right? But we see many different behaviors, some we don't expect. If we focus on the needs and honoring the feelings of those we are working with, we are embracing them as a person and showing up like Jesus. There are many valid reasons a person may not be meeting your expectations. Remember, what you may think is socially acceptable behavior may not be known or understood to them. It's important for children in all of our ministries to feel like they have a place and they belong. Small things like acknowledging them even when you don't seem to be getting a response is important. Smiling when you see them, saying hello, giving a quick fist bump, or asking how are you. This helps them feel seen. These little acts of kindness build connection. Over time, your consistent love and kindness may be rewarded. Rewarded.
Yeah. It makes a huge impact in their life, right? I mean, we all want to be seen, heard, and understood, right? Especially when we're going through a hard time or in a sticky situation or we're feeling uncomfortable. The kids do too. And that's part of our job, is to help everybody feel seen, everybody feel heard, and everybody to feel really understood. And I loved the what Melissa said. I can't remember her wording right now, but just listening to them, right? It's so important. You know, communication is really important. Asking questions is really important. Never assume anything with these kids. It's where we go. We want answers. And we'll make it up if we don't have the answer. And we'll assume things about them that may or may not be true. But we can't afford to take that risk. We need to know for sure, okay? And a lot of times it's the parents who have the most answers. They are the experts in their kids, okay? They may not understand everything, but they know more than we do. They know more than anybody else does, okay? And I know it can be really intimidating because some of them acknowledge the disabilities and the challenges and some of them don't, okay? So it can be hard and challenging to embrace and have those conversations. Some will be perfectly open. I'll talk to you all day. Others won't. But if you can find a way to communicate and connect with them, you can develop an appropriate and consistent plan. You can glean ideas from them on what's going to work. Some great questions I've asked that have even helped me. What works at home? What works at home? Now, it might not work for you. A lot of things that work at school don't work at home. But it's good to know. It's great information. And then you can discover whether it'll work or not. That's great information too. Because you either keep doing it or you change it. Don't keep doing what's not working. It is the definition of insanity after all. Right? And you're not insane. So don't keep doing what doesn't work. What are some things that we can do? What are things we can do? I guarantee they've been ticked off about something and they have some ideas on what they would like to see differently. Just listen. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but it'll give you an idea of where they're at. It might even sound critical. It might hurt. Don't take it personally. It's probably not about you. It's about, there's a big picture going on. Okay? How can we support you as the parent? What do you need? You know? One of the greatest things that people could have done for me when we were really challenging is take my kid out. Go get ice cream. It was post-COVID. Couldn't get him out the house. But he'll probably go with you. I'm not the fun one. Right? You're cool. I'm not. This is one that when I work with kids and with parents, I really focus on. What are their strengths? What do they do well? Because I'm really good at seeing what they don't do well. That's obvious, right? I can nitpick all the stuff they're not doing very well. But what are they doing well? Because what we focus on grows. It really does. And if we can find things that they're doing well and authentically, genuinely point it out to them, oh, wow, I'll do more of that. And it works. It works. Okay, how do they learn? What do they like? Really, really helps. You know, the one thing about coming into our ministries for a lot of these kids is it can be overstimulating, overwhelming. But finding their talents, their strengths, and things that will draw them out is going to help them want to show up, right? Giving them a job, being their friend, identifying and encouraging and engaging those hidden gifts and talents makes them feel seen, heard, and sometimes understood.
In addition to asking my children, I also asked for some parent input for this lesson. Patience was repeated over and over again. So I'm not going to read this post for time's sake, but this is a post that's been circulating Facebook, and it's a good example of something that frequently happens in school. A teacher assigns what seems like a simple homework, but when you stop and look at it, there are multiple steps that require excellent executive functioning. that many kids struggle with. So it creates anxiety and the feeling of failure before they start. Where in your ministry do you ask what seems like a simple request, but actually has multiple steps and could be overwhelming for some kids?
A good one is, do you want to study the Bible? Right? You know, take a look at what's happening in your classroom. Be observant, be curious. You know, children, no matter what their age, can have difficulty paying attention for long periods of time. Create movement breaks, move things around. We're good at it when they're little, right? We have centers. But as they grow up, we forget and we just expect them to sit for 45 minutes during a devotional. They can't.
Right.
They're going to fidget. So sometimes we're setting them up to fail. We're not embracing what they need. Everyone's going to benefit from a fidget break. Everyone in that room is going to benefit from moving around or just doing something as well as that kid. And it really is crazy to me how when I embrace neurodiversity, everyone benefited. Everyone paid attention. Everyone, even if they were normal, typical, whatever you want to call it, were like, oh, I've got to move. Go pee real fast. Right? Create those breaks.
So before we led children's ministry, I would go and pick up one of my children, and almost every week I would hear the teachers complain about the kids in the class. There were like 25 second graders, and it was really hard to hear. And this is before I even really understood special needs the way that I understand it now. And I said, let's put us in that classroom and don't take us out. Like I want to be in there. What happened was it was this beautiful class that had a ton of energy, a lot of neurodiversity in there, but they just needed to learn how to be engaged in ways like giving them movement breaks, teaching them to doodle the story as they were learning, just creating an environment where they felt safe and they felt heard. They felt like they could be themselves without fitting into this box and struggling because it was just a lecture. The important thing is looking around and finding during a devotional, during a lesson in children's ministry, whatever it is, being able to engage the kids and find new ways to change it up. And you know what? In the middle of something, if it's not working, change. Right there, change. Figure it out. And that's going to require a lot of learning and growing, and that just continues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're going to, real fast, because we're running out of time, hit on just things that we have found helpful. We're not telling you have to do this. We're not even saying this will work for all of you, because that would go against everything we just shared, right? But these are things that we've tried and that we've been successful with, and we're just putting it out there as simple ideas. You may be doing some of these things already, and if you are, great, pat yourself on the back. That's awesome. Right? But if it's new to you, it's just some ideas. So, what did I do in the first one?
I think so.
Okay. One of the things that's really helped our teen ministry grow, and when we became a part of that little church mission team, almost every kid in there had a special need. It was kind of really interesting to be a part of that. But the consistency was key. Just showing up, being for them, there for them, loving them. The setup. Is the space welcoming to them? Right? Chairs in a circle for 45 minutes may or may not work. Chairs at a table where they can doodle or scribble or do whatever may work a little bit better. We have the lifetime tables, and we have a hole in the middle, and we do all the tables around. So it's kind of like a circle, but it's a rectangle. They're still looking at each other. They're not in lines or anything. But that's something we figured out worked for our kids right now. Training everyone. Everyone. It's not just about equipping the teacher in the room in that moment. It's about equipping the church. The whole church. The grandparents. The parents. The other teens, the campus ministry kids. the little kids. You know, some of these kids go to school and everybody knows their name. And they're high-fiving them. And they're loving up on them. Why? Because they've been taught to do that. They've been taught to embrace. And it's a ripple effect. One or two do it, and everybody else starts to do it too. How we communicate, the words, the tone, the authenticity, right? No one should ever feel ashamed for the way God created them. They didn't choose to have any kind of disability. Those parents didn't choose to have a kid with a disability. And it's not easy. They have to learn how to do things differently.
We can't just throw these kids into a classroom, a place, a room, you know, whatever it is. It takes time to set up the space that works for the kids in the group. Thinking about the fun, the food, preparing the environment, the safe space, you know, creating a maker space, having activities, hands-on activities for them to do, no matter their age. Teens love to do Legos. You know, there's lots of things you can do and engage, and just finding that important thing. Providing visuals. Visuals are key for some of our kids. Even no matter how old they are, just having maybe for transition, or, you know, there's more official visual types of things, and even just a gradual giving somebody a 5-minute warning because we're going to move and transition to something else can be key for anybody. Establishing a quiet or safe space for somebody that needs it. And that is going to look different depending on if you have a building or if you meet at a school or wherever you meet. That's going to look different.
Yep, we'll go real fast. Healthy expectations, right? We talked about expectations. Oftentimes our expectations are not what these kids can make. You know, their biological age can be very different from their developmental age. Yeah. And that's really key. That was like huge for me as a parent. Sometimes my kid was so mature, and other times he acted like a 3-year-old or my daughter. And it's like, what is going on? Right? And we see that in ministry too. Sometimes they show up and they're like, wow, he's having a good day today. And then other days, it's more challenging and it's more difficult. Mm-hmm. So working towards what you see in front of you, because that's where they're at developmentally in that moment.
Faith and fellowship. I think it speaks to itself. We did talk on that. Positive feedback. Yeah, we've touched on that, so I'm going to skip through that. But it's super important to train teachers to do this. Strength spotting, authentic praise, looking for the good so that it grows. Another scripture that really helped me was Colossians 3:12. You can go back and look at it. It takes a lot of patience and kindness to adapt and to be inclusive of everyone. One thing that really hurt me as a mom was when my son was not included in a senior honoring. I had to leave, find a friend, and cry, and just let it out. I hurt for him when he shared recently that one thing that stuck with me was when I truly tried, I was told that I didn't want to be a disciple and that I wasn't trying. That was ultimately what pushed me away.
Okay. I'm not going to talk about this. It's evident. If they can do well, they're going to do well. You know, as a parent, when I talk to parents, I say there's no morning meeting. They don't get up and decide we're going to be bad today. Yeah. We're going to give everybody a hard time today. They do well if they can. Which takes me to, in the moment is never the moment. If they're having a hard time, empathy, compassion, understanding, love on them. Mm-hmm. They can't process in that moment. They just need to know you're there for them. Mm-hmm. When they're calm, when they're regulated, that's the time to talk. It may be 5 minutes later, it may be a day later. Meet their needs. This is good. He's not giving you a hard time. Yeah. She's not coming in to give you a hard time. She's having a hard time. It takes the personalness out of it, because it's not about me. It's not about you. Okay? It's about them.
Final thoughts. Connect and build relationships. Check your expectations. Equip everyone and be prepared. Look for the good. Give positive feedback. Hold on to scriptures that support you. No two churches are going to look the same when embracing neurodiversity. Just like individuals are unique, churches are also different. It's important to collaborate with others working in children's ministry and with the teen ministry to gain ideas, get inspired or inspire others, and to grow. But it is equally important to figure out what's going to work best for your ministry. Developing a team is crucial.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. You can take a photo of that. This is how you can access us. This is the camp. This is a Facebook group where you will find a lot of other children's ministry leaders, and that's my business. And as soon as you put your cameras down, we'll give you our contact information. Please, we didn't get to Q&A. We did run out of time. We kind of thought we might, but we were hoping we wouldn't. We are neurodiverse. We do like to talk. We do like to share and teach. Don't hesitate. Call us, text us. Please reach out. We're here. We're going to plan on doing some Zooms. We are going to reteach this lesson if you didn't hear us before, so that we can record it and share it with other people. And we'll probably, whatever your questions are, we'll probably do other Zooms to answer them. Thank you for coming.